We often imagine the Founding Fathers as flawless visionaries, noblemen united under divine inspiration to create a republic of liberty and justice. But peel back the patriotic paint, and a more complex portrait emerges, one shaded with ego, secrecy, and manipulation. The revolution wasn't just a battle between colonists and the crown. It was also a war of ideas, money, and personal ambition among America's own elite. Behind the soaring rhetoric of freedom were economic motives, land speculation, trade monopolies, and the fear of losing colonial wealth under British taxation. Many signers of the Declaration were deeply tied to commercial interests. Plantation owners who relied on enslaved labor, merchants eager for unrestricted trade, and lawyers seeking power in a new political order. Their vision of liberty often stopped at the boundaries of their own prosperity. Even as they declared all men are created equal, some founders simultaneously secured their status as aristocrats of the new republic. George Washington, revered as the father of the nation, was also one of its largest landowners. Jefferson, the prophet of liberty, owned more than 600 slaves during his lifetime. For these men, independence wasn't only an act of defiance against Britain, it was a chance to redefine hierarchy on their own terms. Beneath their public unity, secret rivalries brewed. Hamilton despised Jefferson's idealism, while Jefferson feared Hamilton's ambition for centralized control. Adams mistrusted both. The Constitution that emerged was not a sacred text but a carefully negotiated truce, one shaped by compromise, manipulation, and quiet influence from secret societies whose reach extended deep into the founding circle. The myth of unity was necessary for the young nation's survival, but behind it lay whispered oaths, private lodges, and a vision for America that blended democracy with control, a duality that would echo through its entire history. By the late 18th century, Freemasonry had become one of the most powerful networks in the Western world. Cloaked in ritual and secrecy, it attracted men of intellect, wealth, and ambition, including many of America's founders: Washington, Franklin, Revere, Hancock, and even some signers of the Constitution were Masons, bound not only by ideals of enlightenment but by sworn secrecy and brotherhood. Freemasonry preached moral virtue, rationalism, and the pursuit of knowledge, but it also cultivated an inner circle of influence that transcended borders. Lodges functioned as quiet arenas for networking, political debate, and planning. In these dimly lit chambers, strategies were whispered that would shape revolutions, governments, and economic power structures. Some historians argue that the symbolism embedded in the Great Seal, the all-seeing eye, the pyramid, the Latin mottos, reflects not coincidence, but deliberate Masonic influence. Benjamin Franklin, perhaps the most celebrated polymath of the age, was deeply immersed in Masonic life. As a Grand Master, he used his position to foster secret correspondence with European lodges, particularly in France, where revolutionary sentiment was also brewing. Through these channels, alliances were forged and ideas exchanged, from republican governance to the concept of a new order of the ages. But Freemasonry's role went beyond philosophy. It offered an invisible web of trust, one that bypassed traditional politics. When the Continental Congress was riven by suspicion and competing agendas, Masonry provided an alternate network of loyalty. It was a brotherhood above party, one that shaped not just laws but loyalties. The question remains, was the American Republic born as a democratic experiment or as a carefully orchestrated Masonic project? The truth, like the lodge itself, remains hidden in shadow. Long before the Constitution was signed, Benjamin Franklin had been quietly building a transatlantic intelligence network. As ambassador to France, he mingled with philosophers, scientists, spies, and aristocrats, a blend of Enlightenment thinkers and secret operatives. France's support for the revolution didn't emerge solely from ideology. It was cultivated through Franklin's charm, influence, and secret diplomacy. Franklin's residence in Passy became a hub of coded correspondence and clandestine meetings. Visitors would come and go under the guise of dinner guests, yet their discussions shaped the flow of arms, funding, and political support. Franklin's printing press, officially devoted to pamphlets, occasionally produced encrypted messages meant for French allies or fellow Masons abroad. He was also deeply involved with the Hellfire Club, an eccentric group of British elites whose rituals blended debauchery with philosophical rebellion. Though not a full member, Franklin's association with its founder, Sir Francis Dashwood, sparked centuries of speculation about his moral and political allegiances. To Franklin, secrecy wasn't sin, it was strategy. Through these networks, Franklin didn't just secure aid, he shaped ideology. His conversations with European Freemasons, Jesuit intellectuals, and French philosophers helped frame America not merely as a rebellion, but as the prototype of a rational republic, a nation guided by reason, science, and brotherhood, not monarchy or church. This vision was radical, and it made the new America both admired and feared in Europe. Yet when Franklin returned home, his vision clashed with the realities of power. The republic he imagined was not the one being built. His allies in secrecy, the European intellectuals and Masons, saw America as an experiment in enlightenment, but many of his fellow founders were already steering it toward oligarchy. The war for independence had been won, but the battle for America's soul was just beginning. Behind closed doors, the founding fathers turned on one another, each seeking to define the meaning of the revolution, and beneath their philosophical debates lay secret influences and personal vendettas. Alexander Hamilton, a man of razor intellect and boundless ambition, sought to mold America into a powerhouse of commerce and centralized authority and a nation guided by the few for the sake of stability. Jefferson, in contrast, envisioned an agrarian republic, decentralized and rooted in individual liberty. Their conflict wasn't merely political, it was metaphysical. Two visions of order born from the same revolution but fated to clash. Hamilton's allies included financiers, war profiteers, and European bankers, some of whom shared connections through secret, Masonic or fraternal circles. Jefferson's base was the Southern planter elite, bound by their own form of secrecy, the unspoken dependence on slavery and land domination. As Treasury Secretary, Hamilton established the nation's first central bank, the move that critics saw as an echo of European financial cabals. Rumors swirled that this banking elite operated under the same veiled influences that had shaped Old World monarchies. Jefferson warned that financial institutions would one day be more dangerous to our liberties than standing armies. The Constitution, supposedly a neutral document, became a battlefield of coded compromises. Its silence on slavery, its ambiguity on federal power, all served as hidden fault lines. Secret meetings in taverns, backroom alliances, and coded letters between founders revealed a nation being shaped not by idealism, but by calculated control. In many ways, America's founding wasn't a conclusion. It was an ongoing secret war between those who sought to liberate power and those who sought to contain it. When delegates gathered in Philadelphia in 1787, they presented their mission as one of unity. Yet the Constitutional Convention was more akin to a closed-door negotiation among rival factions. Journalists were banned, debates were sealed, and the records were hidden for decades. What was discussed inside would not be fully revealed until long after the founders were gone. The official story celebrates compromise and the balancing of state and federal power, large and small states, liberty and order. But within those compromises lay deep manipulation. Delegates like Madison, Washington, and Hamilton understood that true democracy could be dangerous. Too much liberty could lead to chaos. So they built a republic designed to appear democratic, while ensuring that ultimate authority remained in the hands of the educated elite. The creation of the Electoral College, the indirect election of senators, and the limitations on popular participation were all products of this secret calculus. The founders didn't trust the masses, so they trusted themselves. The new Constitution was not purely a shield of liberty but also a gate of control. Meanwhile, Masonic and fraternal influences shaped the document's philosophical tone. Its balance of order and freedom, secrecy and transparency, mirrored the structure of the lodges themselves. Even the imagery chosen for America's Great Seal and the unfinished pyramid beneath the all-seeing eye symbolized a nation still under secret construction, guided by an unseen force toward an uncertain destiny. Was the Constitution a masterpiece of governance, or a subtle mechanism of restraint, designed to contain true democracy? The answer lies not in the document's text, but in the shadows where it was written. 2.5 centuries later, The echoes of America's secret founding still reverberate. The nation that promised openness and liberty remains obsessed with secrecy, from covert government operations to private elite, networks that influence policy from the shadows, intelligence agencies, corporate alliances, and political dynasties all trace their lineage to a culture that began in those candlelit lodges of the 18th century. Freemasonry's influence may have waned, but its spirit, secrecy for the sake of control, persists. The rituals have changed form but not function. Where Masons once swore oaths of loyalty to the lodge, today's power brokers swear allegiance to political parties, corporations, and intelligence alliances. The result is the same: the concentration of influence behind closed doors. Modern scholars still debate whether the founders' secrecy was necessary or corrupt. Some argue that without private negotiation, America might never have survived its infancy. Others claim that this hidden foundation planted a seed of hypocrisy, a republic built on transparency but born in concealment. Yet perhaps the real secret is more subtle. The Founding Fathers knew that myth is as powerful as truth. By crafting a narrative of perfect unity, divine guidance, and moral purpose, they ensured that future generations would revere their creation, even if they never understood it fully. In the end, the secret founding is not just about hidden lodges or coded documents. It's about human nature, the eternal tension between idealism and ambition, freedom and control. The men who built America were not gods or villains. They were dreamers with secrets, architects of a nation forever balancing light and shadow,